días a todos y a todas.
0404.
Por favor, micrófonos apagados.
1043.
Les pedimos a todos los asistentes que mantengan su micrófono y sus cámaras en off mientras no usen la palabra, por favor. Buenos días a todos y a todas. Tenemos el gusto de iniciar el ciclo de conferencias sobre medición de infraestructura coorganizado con apoyo del Programa Universitario de Estudios del Desarrollo de la UNAM. Tenemos la presentación este día.
El 5 del 26.
Por favor, ¿hay alguien ahí con su micrófono encendido? Ok. Buenos días a todos y a todas. Tenemos el gusto de iniciar el ciclo de conferencias Medición de Infraestructura, organizado por el Programa Universitario de Estudios del Desarrollo de la UNAM. Tenemos con nosotros la presentación de el Infrastructure Statistics Hub del Canadá, y con ello será la presentación en inglés por el doctor Hasina Rasata. También tenemos con nosotros a los maestros Mauricio Márquez Corona, vicepresidente de Información Económica del INEGI, y al maestro Enrique Provencio Durazo, investigador del Programa Universitario de Estudios de Desarrollo de la UNAM, quienes nos dirigirán unas palabras de bienvenida. Por favor, maestro Márquez, puede hacer uso de la palabra.
Muchas gracias, muy buenos días. Es un gusto estar en este seminario precisamente el día de hoy, que está arrancando. Estoy convencido que lo que aquí nos expondrán diferentes conferencistas será útil en el caso de México para consolidar información sobre la infraestructura pública que está apoyando el desarrollo nacional. Muy buenos días a todos.
Adelante, Enrique. Buenos días.
Muchas gracias, Ricardo. Muy buenos días. Es un gusto para nosotros estar en este proyecto con INEGI y es un gusto también que abra la reunión el vicepresidente de INEGI, el maestro Márquez. También es un honor que empecemos este ciclo de conferencias con la participación del el doctor Hasina Rasata, que nos expondrá la experiencia que en este tema de medición de la infraestructura tienen en Canadá. Para nosotros, en el Programa Universitario de Estudios del Desarrollo, es también una gran oportunidad poder ser socios en esta iniciativa con el INEGI, puesto que una de las claves del desarrollo en cualquier parte del mundo es precisamente la disponibilidad, la calidad, la actualidad de la infraestructura. Y sin embargo, este es un tema no solamente de difícil medición, sino también de una no tan sencilla, no tan simple conceptualización. ¿Qué debemos medir? ¿Cuál es la infraestructura pertinente a tomar en cuenta? Son aspectos clave en este proceso de análisis y, por tanto, son aspectos claves para tener mejor información para la toma de decisiones a escala nacional y a escala estatal y local. Por eso, en el Programa Universitario de Estudios del Desarrollo tenemos mucho entusiasmo de cooperar con INEGI en este proyecto y nos congratulamos de que el día de hoy inicie este ciclo de conferencias. Muchas gracias. Gracias a Hasina por su participación en esta ocasión. Es todo, Ricardo, para empezar.
well. Both Mauricio and Enrique. Now I'll give the floor just for Enrique to present Dr. Hasina Rasata, and then we'll give him the floor. Thank you.
Gracias, Ricardo. El doctor Hasina Rasata es actualmente el jefe de la sección de inversión de capital y comercio de cuentas nacionales en la Oficina Nacional de Estadísticas de Canadá, donde él actúa como estadístico en jefe. El grupo de Hasina es el responsable tanto del programa de acciones de capital como del Centro de Estadísticas de Infraestructura. Hasina es doctor en Ciencias de la Gestión por HEC Montreal y también estudió una maestría en Econometría por la Universidad de Montreal. Welcome, Hasina. You are on the floor. Please.
Thanks. I will share my screen. Do you see my screen?
Yes, Hasina.
Yeah. So thanks for giving me this opportunity to present one of our products, the Infrastructure Economic Accounts, commonly known as INFIE. As said before, my name is Hasina Rasata. I am the Chief of the Capital Investment and Trade Section in the National Economic Accounts Division at Statistics Canada. My main responsibilities are the estimation of the gross fixed capital formation, trade, and capital stock, which are the main input of the INFIE. Infrastructure is an important part of the Canadian economic and social landscape. It plays a significant role in Canada's economic growth and provides all Canadians with services that enhance their well-being. Given its importance, policymakers, researchers, businesses, and households require comprehensive and timely statistics in order to assess the evolution, structure, role, and state of Canada's infrastructure and the impact it has on the economy, society, and the environment. What is an infrastructure economic account? It represents a set of statistical statements that record the economic, social, and environmental impacts related to the production and use of infrastructure in Canada and its province and territory. Developed in partnership with Infrastructure Canada, the INFIE brings together data from many programs to isolate the importance of infrastructure on our economy. The INFIE reflects the economic activity to construct infrastructure assets. It does not include the impacts of ongoing use of infrastructure. Within the INFIE, the following questions can be answered. What is the growth in infrastructure spending? What is infrastructure spending as a share of total investment in Canada? What is the value of the stock of Canada's infrastructure? How much does that stock contribute to national health? What is the remaining useful life of Canada's infrastructure assets? What is the value-add impact of infrastructure? How many jobs are related to infrastructure spending? And what is the composition of employees? How does provincial territorial estimates relate to national? But by linking the INFIE to demography information such as the census of population and the labor force survey, we can determine the labor force characteristics. Moreover, by linking two sets of environmental accounts to the infrastructure economic account, a better understanding is gained out of the relationship between economic activity and the environment. Building on definition from the World Bank and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development for the purposes of the Canadian Infrastructure Statistical Framework, infrastructure will be defined as the physical structures and systems that support the production of goods and services and their delivery to and consumption by governments, businesses, and citizens. A critical element of this definition is that infrastructure assets are tangible assets. This means that in order to be included within the infrastructure boundary, an infrastructure asset needs to be a good that is used repeatedly in the process of production or provision of services to its users for more than 1 year. Another important feature of this definition is that infrastructure is an enabler or performs a support function. For the most part, infrastructure represents a set of assets that are used by other factors of production in the production, distribution, or consumption of goods and services. Infrastructure contribution is mainly indirect. For example, in order for a firm to manufacture widgets, parts need to be delivered to the factory plant. These parts are delivered via a transportation system, and the transport system is a supporting infrastructure asset that enables the production of widgets. Using the previous definition, you are able to isolate which capital assets would be considered infrastructure asset as described by this slide. Please take the time to look at the slides. Here you have 12 main group of assets and 47 sub-assets. The infrastructure economic accounts are organized within a statistical framework that outlines the concepts, classification systems, and methods required to construct the accounts. This statistical framework is consistent with the Canadian system of national accounts, Canadian government finance statistics, and Canada's balance of payments. This consistency permits users to analyze the infrastructure-related statistical statements in the context of economic-wide measures, such as investment, gross domestic product, national income, and wealth. The foundation of the infrastructure statistical framework is the System of National Accounts 2008, an internationally recognized framework used to measure economic activity within a country or region. The framework is used by countries throughout the world to record their production, incomes, investment, consumption, financial transaction, and stock of non-financial assets and financial assets, as well as their liabilities. The System of National Account 2008 outlines the concepts, definitions, classifications, and accounting rules for compiling and integrating data to give a comprehensive picture of the economy on how it works. Using the SNA 2008 as the foundation of the infrastructure statistical framework and adhering to the concept within the balance of payments and government finance statistics manuals has many benefits. First, it is an internationally recognized framework, and therefore, any of the information produced as part of a set of Canadian infrastructure accounts is directly comparable to not only the Canadian national accounts and social statistics, but the national accounts and social statistics of most other economies. Second, the data contained within the Canadian national accounts are some of the highest quality data produced and released by Statistics Canada. A large network of data is used to construct these statistics. These data are the starting point in the construction of the infrastructure economic and social accounts. The data have already gone through data quality validation and coherence analysis in the measurement of the core macroeconomic accounts, and have been further integrated, reconciled, and balanced in the process of producing the accounts. This ensures that the data underlying the infrastructure account are equivalent in quality to Canada's core macroeconomic accounts. Third, the framework covers the broad range of economic and social activities that are of interest in order to understand the role of infrastructure within the Canadian economy, society, and environment, including the production, use, and ownership of infrastructure, and the resulting stock. Finally, a set of infrastructure economic accounts also provides clarity for users. The accounts define infrastructure and ensure that data users are all starting from the same vantage point and are speaking the same language when it comes to analysis related to infrastructure use, spending, investment, and stock of infrastructure in Canada. The key concepts and classification permit estimation based on detailed industry, a special aggregation of the industries to separate public versus private sector, details assets, and the function of those assets. This information is compiled at the provincial and territorial level. The use of the statistical framework will permit estimates from the account to be aggregated or disaggregated to allow for meaningful analysis. The main data sources used to construct the infrastructure economic accounts are the Canadian System of National Accounts Program of GDP, capital stock, and the supply use tables. There are a number of benefits associated using this data to construct the infrastructure economic accounts. First, the Canadian macroeconomic accounts follows international reporting frameworks. This means that the data used to construct the infrastructure accounts are internationally comparable to the concept used by other countries. For example, the concept of investment used in the infrastructure accounts is the same concept of investment that the Bureau of Economic Analysis uses when measuring investment in the United States. Second, the Canadian macroeconomic accounts represent one of the highest quality statistical products released by Statistics Canada. The data are compiled and integrating a large number of economic and social statistics into a single framework. This integration forces Statistics Canada economists, sociologists, and statisticians to balance the data by adjusting the original estimates using supplementary information when integrated into the framework. This balancing process highlights data quality issues in the basic statistics, which are addressed when viewed within an integrated system. The infrastructure accounts benefit from this integration process. Investment in infrastructure is the starting point of the economic account. This is the productive activity that impacts our economy. Investment can represent the acquisition of a capital asset, such as transit equipment, or the work in progress of a constructed asset, such as waterworks. For the work in progress assets, the value of the investment reflects the work that has occurred. For example, the light rail project in Ottawa has lasted numerous years. The investment reflects only the construction or the economic production that has occurred in each year rather than the full amount. As can be seen from this chart of the infrastructure asset, those that support the function of transport have the highest share of investment, followed by those that support the function of fuel and energy. Investment in infrastructure is identifiable by the purchasing industry, that is, which industry would have the asset on their balance sheets. Aggregating the government industries results in an estimate of public sector spending on infrastructure assets. Given the delineation between private and public sector, it is possible to see the split through time. As you can see, the share of private investment in the 80s is a lot different compared to later years, much higher. Investment spending includes new construction and purchases, but also includes all additions, major renovations, conversions, and alterations to an existing asset. This investment might be made to improve an asset's productivity or to extend its life, make it safer for use, or adopt more current technology to meet new demands. The two charts represent investment in infrastructure across all provinces and territories. The chart in the left saw the strongest growth by function, while the chart in the right described the growth in the last 10 years. Capital stock is an important indicator of the capital that is available for use in productive processes. It also represents an asset component on the national balance sheet, so it flows into the national wealth calculation. From the INFIE, we can see that for most provinces and territories, their largest capital assets are highway and road structures. From the chart in the right, we can see that net stock per capita varies across the provinces and territories. Note that the net stock per capita in the territories seems high. This is mainly due to the dispersion of their population, immense territory with very low density, and the strength in their mining industry. For example, Northwest Territories' net stock per capita was $93,000 in 2021 compared with $26,000 for Canada. The remaining useful service life of assets is an important component in capital investment prioritization. The share of an asset's remaining useful life is an estimate of the percentage of its remaining useful life before it no longer delivers an economic benefit to its owner. For example, if the expected useful life of an asset is 20 years and the average remaining life of the asset is 15 years, then the share of the remaining useful life would be 75%. Due to the weighted nature of the calculation, a higher proportion of investment spending in recent periods on a given asset relative to previous periods will result in a longer average age and a higher ratio of remaining useful service life for a specific asset. The implementation of the remaining useful service life ratio creates an indicator of a non-residential stock that can be interpreted as an indicator of the capital spending deficit or surplus required to maintain the stock by allowing the ratio to serve as a benchmark. At the total all asset level, we see large variances in the remaining useful service life between regions, from the high in Newfoundland, Labrador to lows in New Brunswick and Yukon. All regions had a decrease in remaining useful life until the early 2000s. Newfoundland and Labrador had a large bump up in its aggregate ratio during 2011-2017 period due to the significant new investment project, such as Muskrat Falls Power Generation Project. It's important to note here that the higher the remaining useful life ratio, the more useful life remains. So this ratio permits a comparison of one asset class to another and can enable analysis of where investment is most required. So we can see that in the left, the asset with recent investment, in the right, those aging assets where investment is most required. In order to estimate the economic contribution of infrastructure investment to gross value added and GDP, input-output multipliers were constructed. The input-output multipliers were derived from the latest Canadian supply use table, which can be used to assess the effects on the economy of a change in the final demand of an output. These multipliers, which have a provincial territorial dimension, are applied to the estimates of investment in infrastructure, which were established in the first stage in order to calculate the value added, output, and employment created through the investment activities. It is important to note that the economic contribution is only calculated for the work put in place, the production of that infrastructure asset. It does not include the economic contribution associated with the ongoing use and consumption of the infrastructure. For example, the multipliers will estimate the impact on the economy from the construction of new subway line, including direct and indirect impacts, but will not estimate the impact on the use or consumption of that subway. As the multipliers are specific to the type of inputs used in the production of specific assets and region, we can differentiate the impact of investment in different assets. As an example, if you have $10 million investment in New Brunswick for highways and road structures, the result will be 75 jobs and close to $5 million in employee compensation. However, for power distribution networks, it is only 36 jobs and $3 million in compensation. Note that the multipliers are based on the supply use and supply and use tables, which focus on the process of production, the use of goods and services in the economy, and the income accruing to factors of production. It describes inter-industry relationships in the economy, how much one industry depends on other industries as both suppliers of their inputs and consumers of their output. These inputs and outputs are the basis for economic impact multipliers. Here we can see that the direct impact measures the initial requirements of output of a given industry to fulfill the change in final demand, the investment in infrastructure assets. The indirect impact measures the changes due to inter-industry processes as they respond to the new demands of the indirectly affected industries. This includes all the chain reaction of output in the upstream production industries to respond to the original shock. So the original shock is the investment in infrastructure assets. One important consideration also is the high Here, I want to point out that the economic impact is not always in line of investment. Some infrastructure assets have a high return on investment with respect to economic impact. For example, from an investment of $1 million, highway and road structure will generate $756,000 in value added, while buses will only create $139,000 in value added. Note that the latter has a higher share of imports. Here we have an example of direct versus indirect impact as a result of investment in hydraulic production plants in British Columbia. The direct impact from this production activity is limited to construction industry, which is 47% of the total impact, whereas the indirect impact is spread throughout the industries, with information, finance, and professional industries the rest of the indirect impact at 25% of the total, followed by distributive trade and transportation services. Jobs related to infrastructure. Unsurprisingly, a large proportion of jobs related to the production infrastructure assets are in the construction industry. There were over 548,000 jobs related to infrastructure in 2021 in Canada, representing approximately 3% of all jobs. Quebec had 117,500 jobs related to infrastructure, and over 220% increase compared to its level in 2000. The environmental perspective of the infrastructure economic account complements and enhances the analytical capacity already available in the account. By linking two sets of environmental accounts to the infrastructure economic account, a better understanding is gained of the relationship between economic activity and the environment. The first set of accounts, the fiscal flow accounts, measures greenhouse gas emissions resulting from economic activity. The second set of accounts, the environmental and clean technology products economic account, measures the production and use of goods and services that reduce the negative environmental impacts associated with economic activity. The fiscal flow accounts record the greenhouse gas emissions associated with an industry's output, and the infrastructure economic account isolates the production of infrastructure assets by producing industry. This economic activity was linked to the fiscal flow accounts on an industry basis to determine the greenhouse gas emissions resulting from the production of infrastructure assets. Additionally, by linking the environmental and clean technology product economic account to the infrastructure economic account, using the input structure of the supply use tables, the number of inputs used in the construction of infrastructure considered to be environmental and clean technology products were determined. In general, if infrastructure investment increases, so will the amount that is clean. However, a ratio of these inputs over time can help determine whether infrastructure assets are using cleaner inputs in the overall design. The combination of infrastructure economic account, the physical flow accounts, and the environmental and clean technology product economic account provides a variety of indicators that can aid in understanding the relationship between investment in infrastructure and the environment. The main indicators include greenhouse gas emissions resulting from the production of infrastructure assets, greenhouse gas emissions per value added, and clean input proportion. The INFIE provides a wealth of economic information on infrastructure, including the number of jobs related to infrastructure spending. Here, but what can you say about those jobs? Within the detailed by province and territory and producing industry jobs estimate from the INFIE, we can link to the census of population, labor force survey, and the Canadian productivity accounts. This allows us to answer questions such as how much employment related to the production of infrastructure assets is full-time versus part-time? How does the prevalence of part-time jobs vary by producing industry? What are the labor inputs to that production in terms of hours worked or full-time equivalents? How does the length of the work week in terms of average hours worked vary by production industry? What are the earnings of those employed? How do average hourly wages and salaries vary by producing industry? How do infrastructure production-related jobs compare to all jobs in the above dimensions? What are the characteristics of those holding the jobs? How many of those jobs are held by females? How many are held by indigenous people? How many are held by immigrants? And perhaps most important, what are the trends over time for those characteristics? Given that the infrastructure economic account starts with the investment that flows into the calculation of the gross domestic product, the estimates are updated as more robust source data becomes available, depending on the open period for updates for the GDP. The INFIE can be updated as well. For example, in November, the GDP has a larger time period open in which we integrate updated supply use tables, annual surveys, and administrative data such as tax files. The INFIE investment estimates and therefore all other estimates will be updated for reference year 2019 to 2021. And for the first estimate for 2022 will be with the fourth quarter release of GDP in February 2023. Here I have we put some important links. So the infrastructure statistics tab, the infrastructure economic account. So that is our latest release. The infrastructure economic account environmental perspective, it's a data visualization about the environmental perspective and the portrait of jobs related to infrastructure. Here you have your contact and also our main my frameworks. So I put my name here and my assistant director, Brenda Bouguet, if you have any questions. Thanks. So that's termined my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hasina. It's a great presentation. Thank you very much. Ricardo, ¿quieres decir algo o empezamos ya con las preguntas?
Por favor, las preguntas. Please, the questions now.
Hasina, can you see the questions in the chat? We have
Okay, here we have one question from Miranda Rebecca Castañeda. The first one is, how did you navigate cooperation relationship with the various government offices and the private sector? I only ask because it's often hard to communicate properly. Style cooperation between stakeholders. Thank you.
Sorry, I think I was muted. Sorry, yeah, so for the questions, as I mentioned before, you are in the Infrastructure Economic Account is in partnership with Infrastructure Canada, and you are mainly work closely. The Infrastructure Canada is involved in all of the quality validation of the data via the work, the WIP, so the working place. Also, we have some regular exchange. We have regular exchange in terms of the scope and the data caps they want to cover with the framework. Is that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes, that's the first question. Now I'd like to read, I think Enrique has some problems, maybe, but I will read the next question from also Rebecca. She's saying, I meant, how did you get others to share with you the information necessary to establish the infrastructure accounts? That's mainly the rephrasing of the same question. Yeah.
Yeah, so the infrastructure economic account is built via the principal frameworks, so the SNA 2008, the government financial statistics manual, and the balance, the Canadian balance of payments. And mainly our main provider of data is VOS. So for example, for the government sector, mainly from the public statistical section division at Statistic Canada. So they have a very close relationship with the different departments which provide the data. So mainly for us, you are like the one who integrate all of the information via different divisions at Statistic Canada.
Okay. Enrique, would you like to read the next question? It's from you. Maybe it would be better if you read it out loud.
Yes, Ricardo, this is for me. Because the list of assets is very wide, my question is, did you add them, the assets, progressively, or were they included from the beginnings of the system? And can you summarize the story, the development of the system across the time? Is beginning with the national account system of you added the infrastructure system to the national account. This is the question.
Yeah, thanks. So the infrastructure economic account, I think, has first developed in 2018 or 17, so a few years ago. And yeah, at the beginning, we developed the framework first, so the statistical framework. And with that statistical framework, we developed first estimates. And last year, you did some historical revisions to allow the infrastructure economic account to go back till 1997, I think. Our starting point is the capital stock programs, which has very detailed data starting from 1871. And the infrastructure economic account is mainly a sub-component or subgroup of that capital stock program. The investment, the starting point of the infrastructure economic account is the investment which feed in the expenditure GDP in Canada. So at the beginning, till the beginning, the infrastructure economic account is part of the Canadian system of macroeconomic account. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Hasina. Another question of Carla Rojas. Clara Luz Alvarez. Regarding communication infrastructure, what type of telecommunication infrastructure data do you collect? Do you collect such information through Statistics Canada or through other authorities?
So for the capital stock program and the infrastructure economic account, our main source of data is the capital expenditure survey. It's an annual survey. And the information from that survey will give us the information about assets. And as the infrastructure economic account is fully integrated with the system of national accounts, Canadian system of national accounts, for each benchmark here, so that is the supply use table here, IO here, you do the reconciliation between the IO here, which have a wide expertise in terms of analyzing the asset structure, the commodity structure, and the industry structure of the Canadian economy. And the CAPEX survey, so the capital expenditure survey, will be used for the non-IO year to project the data from the SUT. And here for the telecommunication, so that is like mainly that information comes directly from the supply use table or from the CAPEX survey. Is that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. Carla Rojas, what infrastructure related to primary production is not included, like in agriculture or fisheries? Yes, is the question.
I'm not sure how to answer that, but maybe my colleague Brenda Bouguet can answer. If not, I will prepare a response and send it by email.
Okay, thank you.
Brenda, micro is muted. If you can unmute it.
Carla Rojas, how do you define public? The infrastructure is the government property or the one that is used by all citizens? Do you include private property? I think it's about the distinction between public and private infrastructure.
Yeah, so the public and versus private infrastructure. So mainly all of the information about the public sector is obtained through the public statistical section division at Statistics Canada, and they are based mainly following the government financial statistic framework.
Yeah.
So for us, it's mainly taking those information from that section and integrated that in your estimation.
Okay. Ricardo, no sé si algún colega de INEGI tenga alguna pregunta más técnica o específica, o quizá algún
creo que
integrante del
tenemos,
grupo.
Sí, Brenda Butch. Brenda is wanting to have access to her microphone, please. She's from StatsCan. Maybe she would like to give some more explanation in some of the questions. Brenda, did you have the mic on? Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, it looks like my microphone is unmuted. Thank you. Yes, so for agriculture and fisheries, those activities would not be considered infrastructure. So when we developed the definition for what would be considered infrastructure, I can't remember the nuances, but something that's specific to only one group would not be included. In the grander scheme of well-being of our society, yes, agriculture and fisheries are an important component, but any of the machinery and equipment that is used in those processes would not be included in our infrastructure definition. However, access to those sites would be included. So the roads to those sites would be included in the infrastructure. The ports or the seaways that would be used for fisheries activities would be included. However, the person's boat that they're using for fisheries would not be included.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda.
Maybe she was asking a question, and I'm not sure if that is already answered. Clara Luz, would you like to take the floor? That was the question from Clara Luz about telecommunications.
¿Tiene abierto el micrófono, Clara Luz?
Clara, you have your microphone on, please. Can you take the floor? Yes, Clara Luz has the microphone now.
Okay, thank you very much for your patience. Thank you very much, Hasina, for your excellent presentation. I was wondering, because I went to the website of Statistic Canada, and I see that there's some information regarding optical fiber and LTE and other type of infrastructure. And as you explained, I understand that you gained information from the CAPEX spending and the CAPEX survey and so on. But I was wondering if you collect also information regarding the actual infrastructure, especially for what you were saying, that you assess the useful life of the infrastructure. And well, I don't know if those type of information would be available from a capital expenditure survey. So my question would be generally as, how do you see where you have infrastructure, not only from capital expenditure, or if you collect such information? Thank you very much, Hasina.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Carla Rose. The capital expenditure survey is a very wide survey. They covered a lot, and mainly they ask some information about the service life of an asset. That information is used to estimate the depreciation rate used in the capital stock program and in the infrastructure economic accounts. For the telecommunication and the telecommunication assets, CAPEX cover those assets in their survey, and you use those information in your both capital stock program and the infrastructure economic account.
Thank you very much, Hasina. We will look to your website to see what information you have there, and thank you very much again.
Thanks.
Enrique, we have a question from. Would you like to read it or give her the floor?
Is the Carla Rojas?
Yes.
Creo que si se le abre
Carla,
el micrófono.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
She has a microphone already. The question is, aquaculture facilities, would they be included? They are infrastructure for production of goods, aren't they? Thank you.
I think for the aquaculture facilities, they should be in the industrial structure, which should be part of the non-residential buildings group category. Just let me check. No, we don't have the industrial buildings here. Maybe I'm wrong. Brenda?
I'm trying to think of where that would actually happen in our where that would occur in our capital expenditure survey. If they built a warehouse and it was specifically for this business to operate, we would not include that industrial building as infrastructure. However, if they did build it and it's been kind of attached to the refurbishment, say, of the Seaway Port, then it might be. So I think that one might be a difficult question. What we can do is we can go back to the capital expenditure survey group and ask them where they would classify those agriculture facilities. So our CapEx survey has a lot more detail than what we have in the national accounts, because our national accounts is actually reconciled at the total, and we go through a coherence analysis. So we can't go down to the very low level of detail of types of assets, but we can check with CapEx to see where those aquaculture facilities would be included. I'm assuming that you're referring to the warehouse that's on land rather than the pods, like the separations that are in the ocean. Is that correct?
Could we give the word to Carla Rojas, please? Carla, you can ask yourself, please.
Carla, tienes el micrófono abierto si quieres preguntar directamente.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure if Carla is having some problems. Maybe that it all depends on the way we're classifying things. So it would be more like, I am muted. Okay. Let me see if we can make it to Carla. She has the microphone, but as I understand, it all depends in the way we're classifying the different stocks.
Hi, I think I'm already open.
Okay. Yes, Carla, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's because I'm thinking about all the infrastructure that is used in the primary production. So it's true that if we are talking about machinery, maybe it is not infrastructure. But in the case of the aquaculture, we construct a very large facilities where we have the culture of fishes or or shrimps, etc., and are used to product, and they are in the account of national assets. So I cannot understand why in the list that I can see in infrastructure, I see mainly things about the third sector, like communications, education, health, etc., but almost or industry like energy, but almost nothing that is used to product to the production of goods in the primary sector, like in mining, for example, minery. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carla, for your question. Can we have some reaction from you, Hasina, or maybe Brenda?
So if I could jump in. So I think when we did the asset identification with Infrastructure Canada, it was more a wider amount of people could access that rather than just one single business. So if we think of agriculture or aquaculture, I think it's only that one business or that private residence that be able to access that those facilities. So I believe that's why we did not include that in the infrastructure definition. It would be in our regular, of course, fixed capital assets that flow into GDP and then that flow into the capital stock. But I believe it's a matter of the use because it's restricted to only a certain group being able to use those facilities. We didn't include them. So if we wanted to grab that aquaculture, but move it more to, say, secondary functions, such as a manufacturing facility, a private manufacturing facility for a specific medicine or a medical piece of equipment, although we would consider the investment in that capital assets, we wouldn't consider that infrastructure because not everybody can access that particular manufacturing plant. So I think that would be the same thing of the aquaculture facilities.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Well, Enrique, I think that are all the questions we have. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Hasina, it would be. Would you like to share with us your presentation? As you notice, we are
Yes.
I have also the presentation for us to have some more specific look into what you had present today, and maybe we can build on those more questions forward. So please send us and we will upload it in the website.
Yes, I will send it via email to Ricardo, I think.
Yes, to me, Ricardo. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, well, if those are all the questions, let me just say thank you to Hasina Rasata, also to Brenda Buch, and the rest of the people that are attending to this conference. I think we have a lot to learn now from this experience. And Enrique, would you like to add something else? We still have some time.
No, thank you, Ricardo. It's a very, very good presentation. It's a good beginning for this conference. And let me to say thank you very much to Hasina and to INEGI, of course. Thank you.
Okay, well, yes, para la audiencia, to the audience, I would like to say that on September 20, 2000, at 9 a.m., we will have the conference Developing New Statistics on Infrastructure in the United Kingdom. So we will have the presentation of Dr. Eurydice Fotopoulou, Office of National Statistics of UK. So we will be expecting you all to be part of this next conference. So Por favor, lo voy a pasar o sea, dentro de 8 días a las 9 de la mañana, igual que hoy, tendremos la conferencia desarrollando la nueva estadística de infraestructura en el Reino Unido. Será una conferencia a cargo de la doctora Eurídice Fotopolou, de la Oficina Nacional de Estadística del Reino Unido. Entonces los esperamos a todos, por favor, que se conecten igual que el día de hoy y les agradecemos su presencia. Muchas gracias, Hasina. Thank you very much, Hasina. I just said the same thing in Spanish. So see you next Tuesday.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
Gracias. Bye.